So I did a video on the OA Defense 2311 Pro a while back, and you dudes immediately were like, well, what about the Pro Elite? And I was like, yeah, I need to check that out. So when OA Defense reached out and was like, hey, can you send that Pro version of the 2311 back? I said, counteroffer. How about you send out a version of the Pro Elite and I get to compare the two? And they said, yeah, that sounds good. And they did it, which is pretty cool. And that's kind of a disclaimer because the Pro Elite isn't so much an entirely different gun. The Pro review has all of the information you're probably going to want about it, but the Pro Elite is different in one important way, and it is the aluminum grip that comes on the pistol. So a quick crash course on how the Pro differs from the Legacy 2311. That's my 2311 that you see there versus the Pro that I have right here. The slide is skeletonized and there are ports in the barrel. There are 2 ports of V2 porting. And there is a much nicer trigger on the 2311 Pro than comes on the 2311 version, which is a little heavier set because it is intended as a duty gun. The Pro Elite actually increases the weight of the pistol by about 5 ounces due to its aluminum grip, and it has some very spiky texture on it. So my guys who like the grips to bite them back will probably really enjoy the texture on the grip. But the Pro Elite only adds about 5 ounces of weight to the 2311, which is kind of brilliant if you're somebody who really likes having weapon-mounted lights on the pistol, because at that point it's kicking it up to the high 30s in the weight, which is really a sweet spot for 9mm pistols. But more importantly than the weight of the pistol is how the pistol holds its weight. The balance that the Pro Elite grip gives to the 2311 platform is what I find to be favorable. Now, real quickly, there is one sort of caveat with this Pro Elite. This is the show model. It's been at a bunch of the shows. It's been shot a lot, and as a result, the recoil spring is nice and broken in. It's taken a set, whereas this was a straight off the line Pro, so the spring is a little bit heavier. I think the reduction in that recoil spring weight helped contribute to what made this pistol, in my opinion, shoot better, but let's get into it. So full stop, I preferred how the Pro Elite shot. I felt like I had better control of the pistol due to the increased texture. That worn out recoil spring sort of feeling made the gun cycle almost like a 2011, which was what I'm used to, so it's what I like. And if you let me pick between the two of them, I definitely would pick the Pro Elite over the regular Pro model because it's a little bit heavier, but it's not that heavy, and it just seems to do everything a little bit nicer. Which one felt softer to shoot?
Softer, this one.
The other big feature of the frame is you see that little roll pin right there. Eventually they're going to make thumb rests that you can swap out on this particular grip. So if you don't like where that thumb rest is landing, then you can potentially relocate it with future versions of that thumb rest. If you don't like where the thumb rest is on the Pro or the Legacy model, well, that's it. That's the way the grips are made currently. So unless they release new grips, then you're kind of stuck with it. And obviously baseline, coming back to the original 2311, that this thing's a couple years old now. The overall machining on the gun has tightened up quite a bit. I noticed it in the Pro video. Just the slide to frame fit is much, much tighter, much like you'd see on something like a Staccato. And this gun is kind of in the same realm as that Pro. They've just gotten better at machining the guns, so the guns are coming a bit tighter from the box, which is cool. There's a couple small things that aluminum allows you to do that I just prefer on the Pro Elite versus the regular Pro model. The first you can see is this double undercut under the trigger guard, and it just feels like I'm getting higher up underneath the trigger guard. And second, because it's not made out of plastic, it's just kind of thinner with where the subframe mounts into the grip, whereas on the polymer grips, there's kind of a ledge right there. It's not a big deal, like I can feel it, but it's not painful, but it doesn't even like come onto the scene at all on this aluminum version of the grip. So that is preferred over the original Pro Elite or regular 2311 grip. And because I am a fancy man with a fancy pistol rest, I did take the gun to my indoor range to test for accuracy. Now I got started because I've got some Federal Champion that I'm working through right now, some 115 grain stuff, and I was not impressed with the grip. First try, 2311, 25. Second attempt with Federal Champion with the 2311. Third attempt with the Champion 2311, not good. And as per always, you have to find a load that your particular barrel is going to like. I switched up to the Federal 147 Gold Match ammo they have. Federal HST 147s, that's what I'm talking about. That is a much better grip for Mr. 2311. Shot great out of the gun and got much, much better accuracy. So because it does have a ported barrel, you are gonna have to find ammo that plays nicely with the gun. One thing that's not super nice about the gun, despite all the nice things I said about it, is that the price tag is the highest on this. If you look at the OA Defense website, they're gonna say it's about, you know, 3,300 bucks or whatever they say it is. Then if you actually go on those like gun deal buying websites, you'll see the price in like the $2,700, $2,800 range. So it's not as bad as the website would have you believe, but it's still a whole lot of money, which places the 2311 Pro at about $400 to $500 over the regular Pro version of the gun. So then you have to ask yourself the question of like, is that aluminum grip module worth that much to you or not? I can't answer that question for you. I'd be curious to know which way you would go. Basically, you're landing on kind of either side of the staccato pricing to get a gun that has, you can see, I can look through the little hole in the barrel at you, to get a ported single action only duty style gun, or would you go all the way up and get the aluminum grip version of the gun? Normally, I prefer how the polymer grips move, but in this instance, I actually do prefer how the aluminum frame ones went. So I'd be curious what your thoughts were. I prefer the aluminum frame, but you know, it's basically a hold block more than the polymer frame version. Let me know where you sign off on that one, because the grip is better here, but you pay for it. So if you haven't caught the video on the original 2311 Pro, you can check that out here.